Merry meet, Annie here. I'm going to borrow a topic from, I think, one of the earliest postings on Pagan Perspective, so that I can grow my own channel a little bit for anybody who finds their way to me. And that subject is the subject of our spiritual path, where we came from and where we are. I was raised in a Christian household. I don't have any baggage that comes with that. It wasn't a negative experience. In my memory, it wasn't that much of an experience, actually. We weren't churchgoers. I explored different kinds of Christianity in my teens, and including Catholicism, as part of what I think of as the Christian experiment. I just don't believe in the things that Christians believe in. Not in a bad way, just in my beliefs just took a different light, a different flow, a different direction. I tried a little bit of everything for a while, maybe a bit of a dabbler, because it's hard to define yourself when you realize that the religion of your family is not your religion. It's like, well, that's well and good, but well, now what? So I studied comparative religions, experienced as much as I could of many different religions. I found my way in the early 70s to a woman's circle, which honored Goddess, and it was a very glorious time in my life. What had led up to that was not particularly glorious. It was a bit of an agonizing first marriage that was very violent and left me a little confused about relationships and men at the time. And this particular circle, well, you could say it saved my life. The idea that deity would be a woman who would understand what I had experienced and guide me through it and hold me close was exactly what I needed. But what happened out of that experience, which was very freeing, it was during the time in my life I was experiencing feminism really in the sense of roar and spit. And my goddess was a bit of an Amazon. She roared and spit. And it was very good for me, and I could not have lived without it. I could not have survived that time in my life without it. But the thing is that, well, I tell a story that I was in circle, and women surrounded me, and for some reason that night there was a lot of anger about men. Some of the women had been hurt, and it was just a night that a lot of energy was being directed in a negative sense towards men in the world. And I was struggling with that coming into that circle, because I had come to an understanding that there had been some hurts, but there had also been the most wonderful men in my life, like my grandfather and my brother, who, well, inspired me and guided me and loved me. And there I sat in that circle, a little bit confused about how I felt about being there at that point, even though it had been an immense circle of healing to that point. And in the midst of diatribes of what can only be considered hatred from the women in the circle towards men in the world, I noticed that the woman next to me was nursing her baby son. And that kind of was a light bulb turning on event for me, that it wasn't the place I needed to be, that whatever deity was, definitely I related to her, but that there was an aspect that balanced her, which was the loving God, the king, the grandfather, all the good things about men taken to the divine extreme. That's the frame of mood I was in, the frame of mind I was in, when I met my first Wiccan. This was in the 70s, when the movement was coming out of New York City, Long Island, and working its way out up and down, to a certain extent, the East Coast. Now, this movement on the East Coast was not the one that was experienced a bit more on the West Coast, which was very tied into feminism. The one on the East Coast at that time was very much about balance and duality. Our circles had priest and priestess, and circles were male and female. And I ended up becoming associated with, going through training with, and eventually being elevated to priestess, to one of those circles. And that form of spirituality has been the bedrock to my entire adult life. It is who I am. It is the relationship that I have with deity. It's everything I ever needed in relationship to community and to whatever it is that's the life force behind it all. I was very happy in that environment for many, many years. As things happened, when that circle ended, I moved on and joined other circles and experienced different ways of celebrating that same connection. All of the circles I have been with in my life have followed basically the same tradition, whether it was to the formal extreme or in a more relaxed sense. I have been in circles of all women, but those who honored both God and Goddess. I have been in circles that were very true to the tradition I was trained in. And I have been involved in circles that were much more liberal and free form than those circles were. All of them satisfied me. I found myself at a period in my 40s where I didn't have a circle, and that was actually very difficult for me because community and coming together and being with others of like mind is a great part of what I need to thrive and feel vibrant in life. Just not a loner, I guess you could say. I also feel that deity wants to be celebrated and lifted up by groups of people who are offering up their energy and their prayer together. At that time, I went to my first Unitarian Universalist church. It was at the recommendation of a pagan friend, and I liked it there. I liked sitting next to a Jew and a Hindu and a Christian and all feeling what we had in common, which was love, the love of deity for its creations. And I really enjoyed it. Had the opportunity to teach, to do Sunday services, and enjoyed that very, very much. So it is also a part of who I am. I'm probably very heavy on the universalist side of that, but it is very much a part of who I am. So where I am spiritually, there's a little bit of a wrap-up of who I am. I am considered an elder in my current circle, and I, at this point in my life, am in service to teaching, but you can't be my age and not realize that you have so much to learn yet. It seems like the older you get, the better you are at knowing any person you meet, anyone you come across, can suddenly give you an insight that will just inspire you and encourage you. So I'm hoping that's part of what my YouTube experience is. I know in looking at other people's videos, very often I go, and there'll be something from that I'll journal that night and think of for a week, and it's part of the whole experience of being here. But I'm also quite glad to answer questions and be of help to anybody that I can. So there's a little bit of a nutshell on where I came from and where I am, and I'm open to questions, and please feel free to leave comments. Thank you for stopping by. Mirth and reverence. Mary Park.